Hello again, everyone, and I welcome you all to yet another interesting panel discussion where we are going to understand the financial impacts of your online community. Online communities have evolved from being primarily just social hubs to becoming powerful tools for businesses, which are now capable of driving significant financial impacts. And understanding the financial implications of your online community is essential for making informed strategic decisions and optimizing the return on investment. That's what our next panel speakers in this session are going to talk about, which is understanding the financial impact of your online community. And to moderate this panel, please allow me to call upon this virtual stage our in house marketing expert, Ankush Jasuja, Senior Manager of Marketing at Decoding. Ankush is a maestro in executing multiple marketing programs, resulting in pipeline creation along with global marketing operation and support functions. He also specializes in identifying marketing opportunities by monitoring industry trends and competitive strategies. Welcome to Community Refocus, Ankush. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Sana, for that wonderful introduction. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on the region from where you are joining us today. As we all know, that online communities have indeed come a long way. Since the days of basic messaging board or a chat room, today they have transformed into a dynamic ecosystem that bring together a diverse group of like-minded individuals, each seeking their unique sense of belonging, interaction, and fulfillment. These communities provide platform to connect, share knowledge, pursue the passion and interests, often surpassing the geographical boundaries and time zones, connecting people globally. While providing this platform, the core ethos of community remain centered around building a relationship. That is a prime focus when the communities were started. So sharing insights is one of the other part what communities have been focused upon, supporting one another irrespective of the journey where you are. However, while communities thrive and expand, it has become increasingly evident that they possess a dynamic impact, including a substantial impact financially that is vital to recognize inside the organization and harness there. We are very excited to dive more into this with our incredible panelists, some of the best community leaders in the business. Please allow me to introduce them. Our first panelist is Head of Community at Persona. Ed was previously Global Head of Communities at Dropbox. He has worked at Wix, Zynga, VMware, and the founder of eDublin. His ability to share useful information in video storytelling has brought him over 400K YouTube subscribers and over 5 million views. Thank you, Ed, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Ankush. Good to have you here and to be here with all. I think we have a lot of people today in this session.
Yeah, thank you. And our second panelist, Ellen, Director of Community at Splunk. Ellen has spent more than a decade in creating, scaling online communities, programs, and in-person events both in Europe and North America. Ellen has begun his career by leading community of a global market giant eBay and is now focused on empowering customers to unlock the full potential of subscriptions through vibrant, resource-rich communities at Splunk. Thank you, Ellen. Pleasure having you as a part of this discussion.
Thanks, Ankush. Thanks for the warm welcome, and thanks everybody for tuning in today. Really happy to be here.
Great. So let's deep dive into understanding the financial impact of your online communities. Before we start, I'd like to request all the attendees to drop their questions in the chat box or a Q&A section appearing on the right side of your screens. we'll try to take as many questions as possible after the at end of the sessions. If not, we'll try to reach you back with the relevant answers by connecting with Ed and Ellen. So to start with, Ed, I'd like to address my first question to you. Ed, according to you, how can organization decode the economical value of online communities?
That's a great question. That's the million-dollar question that I love answering. So I'll break it down to a couple of things. I think maybe for the last 15 years that I've been working with communities, it's been a lot about customer support and deflection of customer support tickets, because it feels easy to measure that. You essentially look at the cost to serve in a one-to-one basis, and then you look at how many customers you're serving on a one-to-many basis, and you multiply that. But then we learned over the years that this is not necessarily as simple as that. There's also an incremental volume that you get when you launch a community. So therefore, if you shut it down, it's not necessarily that you're going to decrease all that number. That number is going to come into your ticket flow. So I look at this differently, especially now at Persona. We have different ways in how we look at the economic value. One of them, when we were like a small company, a startup, we have to look at a lot of how do we drive more awareness, more visibility into what we do, and become, let's call like friends with the ecosystem. Get more people to learn about us and be in a point where they know what we do, what the value we offer. So there's a value in there, right? Because you think about marketing efforts to drive awareness. There's usually a lot of money that goes into producing papers, producing content that will get visibility. With community, if you can get that same volume, I think that shows a little bit of the value there. There's a second one, which comes when you think about the cost of acquisition, the CAC. So if you can reduce that by knowing how much it costs you to acquire a customer through a paid media, and then you have a community effort that reduces that as well, you can apply this as a second point. And I think third is driving customer stories. So if you are able to create, papers, create blog posts or anything that talks about the history and what they produced together with you, this becomes another huge value for you as well. So I'd say these are like three initial points. Welcome to hear from Alan as well, but I think this would be a starting point for us in looking at the value we can drive the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ellen, your take on this?
Yeah, I think I feel very similar to Ed. Like there's always evolving strategies to get to like what you're looking at, and I think I've been in the community industry for over 10 years as well, and been at many different companies, and I feel like I've always adjusted based on what your senior leadership needs at the company as well. I feel like I've worked in community in different organizations at enterprises, and one thing that I've found is sometimes when you're in support, you need to speak the language of senior leadership and support and provide them with metrics and KPIs that they're most interested in. And then in my current role, I sit within the marketing org. And so my senior leaders, while it's nice to be able to tell them about the amount of calls that we deflected and tickets we decreased, they're mostly interested in adoption and retention and our community efforts actually helping the pipeline and getting our customers to buy the product initially or to renew or adopt more. And so I feel like it's going to be different for every organization. And I find that I'm sure once we all get into these roles as a community manager, the first thing that you need to do is speak to senior leadership to figure out what their goals and KPIs and strategies are, and to then go back to your team and figure out how you can align your goals and your measurements to meet those needs.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think very rightly said. I can agree more with both of you. This dynamic space where communities, if optimally used, they have somehow become a backbone for a lot of businesses here, and they have revolutionized the way organizations interact with customers and stakeholders on both the sides. As Ellen was already talking about, the member experiences and the case deflections. So, Ellen, how do you think online communities, in online communities, we can enhance the member experience, and that can be, if you can be more elaborative about how can that contribute to the overall financial viability of the business by increasing the member experience?
Yeah. Well, I love this question because I feel like you always get it as a community manager You are always answering the questions from the executives and from the C-suite. What is community? Why do we do community? Like, we have a Facebook page. Is that not a community? Why don't we just do Facebook or do Twitter? And so I think online communities are very, 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 very different, and they hold a special place for customers. And so I think about how it can enhance the overall member experience. It's extremely powerful if you think about your own personal life, to think about the recommendations that you get from peers, people just like you. Sometimes you get recommendations from family members and friends, and they tell you, I use this product and this product solved this problem in my life, and now I can do X, Y, and Z that I couldn't do before. And that type of word of mouth marketing resonates way more powerfully than anything that a corporate enterprise can put out on their channels. And so I feel like you might have the most talented marketing team in the world, and you might come up with a great Super Bowl ad, and you might spend millions of dollars on it. But what can be more powerful than that is someone on the street telling you that I use the product and I love it. And so I find that communities are that special space where strangers can connect around a product and talk about it and endorse it, or also share some feedback where it's not great and there's areas for opportunities, but just to have those authentic conversations. Another thing that's special about community is that it increases customer loyalty. So I've always found through different forms of measurement that customers who are on the community will spend more with the brand and are more loyal and have a longer customer life value than customers who are not present on the community. I feel like once customers start engaging in the community and having this shared sense of ownership and making friends on the community, that it makes it all very sticky, and they want to help each other out. They want to come back, and they want to like help out the broader community. Another fantastic thing for enterprises that I've always done in communities that I've managed is having some kind of mechanism for a feedback loop for our users. So our users come to community every day and they share pain points, things they love, and so on. And it's extremely important to take those insights and to bring them back into the business, into the product owners, and let them know where there's areas for improvements, or alternatively, what are the ideas that the community has that can actually help bring the product to the next level. And I find that when you're able to document that and amplify the results of those member suggestions, that can go a long way internally to saying, you know what, this isn't just a place where people chat. This is a place where we build brand advocates. We get a lot of product ideas, and we have this feedback loop with our community. And so it makes it for an extremely powerful piece of ammunition for you as a community manager when you have to go and have those conversations around budget for platforms or programs.
Yeah. Ed, would you like to add here?
Yeah, I think Alan raised like really good points. I would add to that, there's sometimes things that happens through communities that are very hard to be, let's say, not even financially measured, but really to give it like a metric. I'll give you an example, maybe two examples. One is when we do events, we're part of the events. Say like there's a conference going on, and then we have our booth, and then someone comes in and wants to take a selfie with the team just because they like us. It's so much different than someone just coming in to grab a flyer and then leave. Because other people and other companies would be like, why are they hanging there? Why are they chatting? And why is it like such a line of people around this brand? And it's a little bit of a magic that comes out of community because they just like us. They're like, we chat every single day through a platform. So this becomes like an enhanced kind of feature for events. Another example that's very tangible to what we did recently here with Persona was sometimes we ask customers for reviews on like G2, Capterra, and whatnot. And then when I ask the community, it's almost like a no-brainer. They're like, sure, of course, why not? Oh yeah, and that easy win is again like, okay, otherwise I'd have to make an effort, maybe give them like a voucher or whatever. So that simplicity in how you get people to contribute and help you enhance or share more of your message is kind of like also added to that value. So when you come back to your to the business, to leadership, and talk to them, they're like, of course, I mean, I'm seeing this. This is the intangible things that come on top of the regular measurements that you have in place. So this to me is like a huge plus.
Yeah, I think very well quoted the last part, Ed, by you. I think that's the beauty and the power of customer engagement and brand loyalty, inside the communities, which can be leveraged. And also the new phase which has started is, adding value by user-generated content in these communities. So, as Ellen was mentioned, with the new acquisition, the cost, the reduction, the acquisition cost of the users that is reduced through communities is one of the revenue streams which can be seen across while we interact. But while continuously evaluating and optimizing their impacts, and business can leverage these communities as a valuable asset for both member experience and financial successes, if they look deeper into this and try to utilize it. And moving to the next part. What do you think are some of the key ways in which online communities contribute to the reduction of cost for organization, and how can these cost reduction be accurately measured and analyzed? I was actually seeing the same question in the chat also, quite similar, where someone is trying to ask that how do you measure these interactions to dollar conversions? Quite similar to what we are trying to address here.
Great question. I see. I think Paul Johnson asked something around that. I love to say that every time someone says measuring engagement or how can we increase engagement, a dolphin gets hit by a jet ski in Sri Lanka. So engagement for the sake of engagement is not necessarily a huge thing or at all anything. Really, what you should think about is this engagement intentional? What's the driver there, and what does that lead you to? So give you, again, I'm trying to bring examples from Persona, because with Dropbox, with Zynga, with Wix, the brand value was so strong and the community was huge. So it's almost like an unfair advantage that the brand was strong enough to drive a lot of the engagement themselves. So people were gravitating towards the brand naturally. And then community became more of like, how do I create something around that? Where with Persona, the challenge is people don't know we exist. They don't even know what we do. How then we create that value so that everything we're talking about here can be measured and implemented. So one example is when someone comes in to talk to us and we bring them into a program where we teach them about what we do, we put them in connection with other people in the industry, we help them find partners because of what we do can be rather complex. So finding the right partners to help them navigate through that complexity, especially as a founder who's like usually a solo, helps a lot, and they see the value there. What usually happens is two key things. One, they refer us to other customers. So referral is huge, because if you bring referrals through members of the community, again, to someone's question here is, how much is our product valued at? How much would that cost if you had to hire a salesperson to reach out, maybe an SDR to do the triage first, and then go through all the sales cycle, pay commission? There's a cost there, right? So if you have known of that because a member just referred and they signed up, that's a huge win. Second, if they're staying with you, I think to Alan's point, longer, because the retention essentially is a key thing. We don't know that yet because we're new. So we're like, maybe retention is going to be a key thing. We will figure it out over time, because we haven't had a drop, but we cannot compare this with the regular members that signed up as a regular customer. But what we can see is, out of those, are they more likely to try new features? And if they try new features or learn about new features, that's an upsell opportunity. So upsell, again, there's a dollar sign behind it. And what I like to say about this is, as much as leadership may say they care about, all this reach and then all the growth and then how many members you have to always think about, how can I show the dollar sign? If you show dollar signs, there's no person that cannot understand that. If it's going up or down, they're like, am I making more money? Is this going to the right and to the up? Great. Are we reducing costs? Is going down, like in showing us that reduction of costs? Great, love you. So dollar signs are usually a key metric to show leadership.
Right. I think very well said, Ed. Ellen, would you like to add here more? Because I think one of the prime thing what Ed mentioned is that, yes, the dollar signs, one is coming in, the dollars coming in, other is the dollars saved. That has also become an essential part. And with improving member experience, the new concept of community at the center or community everywhere, that has also made a good hold for any organizations who are leading support, marketing, customer success, by keeping community at the center. Ellen, I'll pause here for your inputs.
Yeah, thanks. I love the way Ed finished talking about showing dollar signs. That's something that just keeps coming up. Yeah, over a year, no matter what organization you work for, what the leadership is like, it always comes down to, okay, but what's the dollars? And so like I've reported out on what some people might call like vanity metrics, like user growth. And like, so that number can only go to a certain point, right? You reach a level of maturity. But dollars is always the one. It's always comes back to like, okay, but how much are we saving, or what are the actual contributions to the business? I can share two examples that might be helpful to illustrate how I've gone about it in the past. So currently I work for Splunk, and we have multiple online community channels. Our main one really that we spend a lot of time on is Khoros, and through the Khoros platform you can enable surveys to users of the community platform. And so we enabled them about a year ago. We didn't have them turned on before, and we're able to ask customers very explicit questions around what are they doing, why did they come to the community, and did they get what they needed. And so we take the results of those surveys, and we then apply a dollar value to the cost per case and figure out what is the reduction in costs. Because you can ask them, why were you coming to community? Did you get what you need? And if you didn't get what you need, what would you have done next? So if they answer all those questions and say they would have went to support, then you're sure that's a pretty sure bet that they were going to do that. And so we're able to report out on a number internally that executives and the senior leadership like to hear about. Also, when I was at eBay a few years ago, we introduced this. We had this great idea, and we thought that we knew that in the community we had a super user program where there was 30, 40 users, and they would be on the community answering questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the community was kind of siloed. People had to know about the community and find it. And we felt like that was an awful shame. So we had this brainwave one day, and we thought, what if we were able to put those community experts into the customer service flow so that when a customer is about to contact eBay, they have the opportunity to ask the community. So we launched that integration with the community. And so the customers were served with two options. It was to contact support or to ask a question to a community expert. We were so surprised by the uptick, or how many folks actually wanted to go and ask the community expert. And we were able to prove very quickly that, I think in the first year alone, that having that flow available in the customer service menu saved the company like $6 million a year. And so that initiative that launched in the US was then quickly rolled out to all of the major markets, because everybody wanted a piece of that action, and everyone wanted to save the business money. And like, not only was it saving the business money, what we were also finding is that customers who went through and asked the community had a higher NPS than people who actually went through to customer support. Because what we found was that when you get through to a customer support agent, they might not understand your issue. They might not be able to have like the context of being an online e-commerce seller and the challenges that you go through, but they might be able to answer like policy questions for you. We found that connecting peer-to-peer folks, the customers who were going to contact support were way happier with the experience that they got through community. And so that was a very powerful kind of way for us to tell the success of the community and how it saves the business money. So again, I think there's many ways to go about it. No way is perfect, and those numbers can be questioned. So you just want to make sure you have your methodology built out in the background and that it's sound. But those are two ways I've gone about it in the past.
If I can add to Alan's point, I love that, because that reminds me of my old days at Dropbox. I think this was exactly the right way of doing it. Like, we look at cores, surveys, and essentially people who would otherwise have contacted support would be a tribute to the cost deflection. But for us, then we're like, okay, so if we know that, the challenge for community then becomes, how do I make it so it's faster and better than a one-to-one ticket experience? What does that mean? If you raise a ticket, there's usually like a delay of an hour or 24 hours, depending on how fast your support team is, but on average, 24 hours. So if I can be faster than 24 hours to get in touch with them and find a solution, that's great. Second is, to my point of being efficient, is I cannot just jump in and say, great question, don't know the answer, man. I'd be like, well, that's not helping, right? It was fast, but it wasn't helpful. So how do I then create meaningful answers to them? And a lot of the ambassador work was around that. So having them help the community grow and expand on that support. We're able to, like, I think it was like at the time 75 or 78% of the questions were answered by community members. And we knew through NPS, through CSAT, and time to resolution, whether they were good or not. And I think Chorus had like the solved mark, so you can measure whether they were from the time asked to time to resolution. So essentially that was the metric we looked at. And then we're like, okay, we're getting to a point where we're becoming not only faster, but more efficient than our customer support. And then it's an easier call to come to leadership and say, well, instead of these 200 agents, can we allocate some of them to become our moderators and then help them become more, into the weeds of the community and learn more about how can we expand this program and whatnot, or reallocate this budget into better tooling or other things that we can deliver to these ambassadors. So it's an easier discussion too, because it goes back to $, right? So being better, being faster, translating into $.
Very well, answered and covered this part. So, Ed and Ellen, probably what I can sense is also that the trend of communities has somehow shifted from organization-driven to a user-driven communities, where the content which is posted or generated by the users as a part of communities valued and trusted more, because that has been also recently observed. And as you mentioned, that people have been active over the community 24/7, and you don't require an agent because they are answering for each other. You just need to moderate, what is coming right. So that's a prime thing. So how do you think that a user generated content within the online communities, how can it enhance the brand reputation and drive better conversations? And also, how can a business quantify these effects on their financial platforms?
Yeah, I can jump in. One of the things, for one of the main reasons why it's great to leverage user generated content, it keeps the community vibrant, right? And I know there's a lot of bandwidth resources internally at companies, especially for brand and creative teams, to constantly be creating assets and content for communities. So I know a lot of community teams might struggle with content and shipping content out the door. So encouraging your members to generate that content and have them feeling part of the team and part of the mission is a really powerful thing to do. And it reduces the need then from the company to invest heavily in kind of content for the community. I touched on this earlier. Again, I think it's really important is trust and authenticity. Just adds many layers to authenticity for the brand, and it can positively influence purchasing decisions. I can think of at the company I'm at now, we ask our super users to complete testimonials for us, to if they're interested in being featured in different pieces of content from the brand. And so that's just a way of showing, for me as a community manager, when I'm researching a software or when I'm looking into things to help me with my strategy, what do? I go to LinkedIn and I look up people like Ed, and I look up people in the industry and Brian, and I see, everyone, and I see like, what are they saying? What are they recommending? And I feel like that kind of word of mouth is extremely important. And it can really help to influence conversion and turning those kind of prospective customers into actual customers. For quantification of the impact, I would look at engagement metrics to see how the user generated content is performing versus other pieces of content. If it's generated by the business, and then versus user generated content, how that's performing. And then look at also the discussions and the conversations that happen as a result of the user generated content. It'd be good to keep an eye on sentiment as well, to understand if the content that you're publishing is resonating with the community.
Yeah. I know we're on time here, but I want to add another point to Alan's feedback here, is that a lot of the work we're doing, we're seeing that it's shifting the mindset internally. An example that I shared this in the chat is we reverted how one of our product plans was worded to be around communities. So that's a huge win for us, because we're like, well, rather than having like this free program here, let's launch around the startup program for community. And that's huge. We're like, okay, we're seeing, changing mindset in how we shift, like even our product thinking here because of community. So great, kind of like input to see that. So again, happy to talk more about this. I think Alan the same. So thanks both Sana and Ankush.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed and Ellen. I think Sana appearing back on the screen is an indication that we are over time. Yeah,
so quickly.
I think. Yeah, the conversations were going they were going so into the flow. I never knew that how these 30 minutes passed on, and we have a couple of questions both in the Q&A and the chat. I think few of them has been already covered as a part of our conversations while we were taking our discussion questions, but for the remaining one, we'll make sure that we get back to you with the relevant answers after connecting with Ed and Ellen. Over to you, Sana. Thank you, Ed and Ellen.